Hi everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Reputation Rescue at Lazio with me, the United City FM. So, all I can say at this point, I've been through most of the summer transfer window. There's still a couple of games, a couple of days left of that. We are playing Sampdoria though. It's the first of our Serie A matches today. But thank goodness for Spal. Because without Spal, our pre-season would have been a complete nightmare. Whoever decided to put Bayern Munich, Lyon and Barcelona in our pre-season friendly matches is so stupid. Because it completely messes with the confidence of the players. And, you know, 3 fairly ropey performances against 3 really good sides when what we really needed is match fitness and a bit of confidence. So I'm going to have to take much more ownership on what games are put into next season's pre-season friendlies. This one was already done and I chose not to change it, but I kind of wish I had now. Because it just messes with the with the mindset of the players. Anyway, it was a poor pre-season, and then we came against Spal and scraped a 1-0 win. But at least it was a win leading into the proper Serie A season, and Sampdoria as the opening match. So you can see that we are still sitting in August, so we've got a couple of days left of the transfer window. We've done a few bits and pieces. We haven't gone overboard, but the great thing so far with a few days left is that we still have our big players. Alberto, Milinkovic-Savic, Immobile are all still at the club, and that's what I've been trying desperately to do, is to keep those and build a side around them rather than lose them and bring the money in to try and then reinvest. So it means that our finances aren't a huge difference to what they were when we started. We've managed to take a few people out of the squad, put a couple in that I'll show you in a second, which means that a reasonable £10 million transfer budget. If we don't do any more business in the summer, that's okay. 10 million for January. If we want to dip in the market again, we can. That's good. 33 grand per week in the wage budget still. So it's not too bad financially. We haven't gone overboard. If you're expecting big signings, you're going to be disappointed, to be honest. Here's the guy that's still coming in next summer that I'm not overly happy with, if you saw last episode. I don't know what happened there. In terms of what's gone out of the club, we've gone from Proto down, I think, was it? I think it was Proto down anyway. Oh, Bever, yeah, there's a couple in here from sort of middle of this group downwards that we managed to get rid of out of the club. Previously, the club had already done some business in getting rid of Neto and Jordao. And so that brought in quite a significant amount of money before I even started. But we've got a few players out of the club that just didn't fit the system or didn't quite have the necessary quality. And so there's a few out on loan. There's a few sales gone out there. In total, the club have made 31 million in the transfer market, which isn't too bad. And you can see that in total we've spent 38. Although again, a lot of that was done before I came in. The likes of Vavro and Lazari and Johnny were all bought into the club before I arrived. So the 3 that I've bought in, I've bought 2 loan players and 1 purchase. And the first one is this guy, Jari Verschieren. And he comes in, and where did we get him from? Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Where did we get him from? We bought him in from Anderlecht. So there's a bit of a fee attached to his loan, but it was worth it because he's a decent young 18-year-old, and if we can keep him in the club for the next season or 2, maybe eventually we can buy him. Who knows if he develops well. He's got a couple of gaps here and there, but at 18, I think he's doing all right, and he's not going to be playing this role as much as he's going to be playing the central midfield role possibly, but there's a bit of rotation in that. He's going to come in and either cover Alberto in central midfield or Correa in the attacking midfield. I'll show you the formation that we're using in a minute, and that will make more sense. But he comes in to cover one of those 2, depending on the circumstance. So Verschieren has come into the club. The next one is a striking option. I wanted a 3rd choice striker. So again, he's not going to pull up any trees. He's not going to be amazing. But behind the couple that we've got, including Immobile, who's going to play most of the games, I just needed to fill a 3rd striker slot. And so we brought in Ruben Sobrino, and he comes in from Valencia on loan for the season, which I think is a decent option for us. He's got some gaps again, but he's a reasonable striker and 3rd choice striker. That's what I was looking for, just a reasonable striker. The third one, the third player that we bought into the club is Jailson, and we bought him in from Fenerbahce for £10 million. And I think it's a decent buy because he's a very all-round good central defensive midfield player, a ball-winning midfielder. And I want to play the ball-winning midfielder role. Lucas Leiva will rotate with Jailson, and there's one other, I think, as well. But I just needed, again, some backup to a slightly ageing player in Lucas Leiva, just to bring in another option. So Jailson has come into the club to fulfill that role. So that's the only transfers that we've done. We haven't gone overboard because we haven't had to sell anybody yet. With a few days left, it's still possible that the big guys could go. The big clubs have been sniffing around them, but we've held them off so far. If one of them comes in and makes a huge offer and the board sell from under me, I can't do anything about it, and I'd have to reinvest that money quite big. But the problem is we're not attracting the big players at the moment. So there's a bit of an issue there. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But just at the moment, all the big players have stayed. So what does that mean that I decided to do in terms of tactic and formation? Well, it's this. It's the sort of 3-5-1-1, I'll call it, I guess. And what I've got is I've got 3 versions of the same tactic in 3 different styles of play. So the tactic, I think, fits the players that we've got. I worked around that and bought a couple of players in like Jailson to bring into the club to be able to play the roles that I want. So we remember that Jailson is going to fulfill this central defensive midfielder role in rotation with Leiva. And Alberto, we talked about Vashirin coming in at that point or in the courier role. He can play in both, and so can... where has he gone? Andre Anderson. So you can see that both those 2 players can play in both the roles. Vashirin and Anderson can cover both of those roles. So we've got a little bit of movement as to who plays where at what point. But then we've basically got 2 11s. From 1 to 11 on our bench matches 1 to 11 in our starting lineup in terms of the positions that players can play in. And then we've got an additional striker, an additional central defender, or a midfielder, actually, because I've had to put him in there because Bastos is injured at the moment. So it's a midfielder and a wing-back option. So those are the extras that we've got in the club. Other than that, we've got 2 set 11s. So, yeah, this is the setup. So we've gone 3 at the back. I thought it would be hopefully more defensively solid, but we'll have to wait and see on that. The core central midfield area, it's a really good set of midfielders that we've got. Both starting 11 and backup 11 as well. I've got some good central midfielders in there. So we're going to send the ball through them quite a bit of the time, I would think, in our setup. But what you can see is that we've got a balanced setup here in a controlled possession. If we move to slot number 2, we go to a vertical tiki-taka in a slightly more positive attacking sense. So we're going to move the ball through the team in a vertical tiki-taka system in a more attacking way. And the third option is the counter-attacking fluid style, and that's more defensive. You can see as we click through them, the players go up and down a bit because I've changed some of the roles for them in each of these formations and tried to balance it properly in terms of what we're trying to fulfill. So in the attacking option, there's more attacking support for Immobile on both wings and also from a couple of these midfielders. But in the more defensive option, there isn't that, and Immobile drops deeper himself. So I've tried to balance it as much as I can. We're going to see which one of these really we use more, but I suspect it will be the controlled possession one just to start the game and then have an option either way to move to. But that's what we've chosen. So in the controlled possession style, it's balanced. You can see in possession, those are the things that we've decided to do. And then in transition, also, you can see that there's a couple of options clicked there. I won't go through them all. You can see them. And then out of possession, we're using the standard line of defense and attack. If we then come back out of that and go into our attacking version, you can see that there's some slightly different options listed here. Bit more counter pressing and a higher line of engagement, And then in the third option, in the defensive version, on the counter-attacking fluid style, you can see again we've got a couple of different options that are marked as to what we're going to do here, and a much more lower line of engagement and a reset for them to spring the counter-attack from. Those are the three that we got, and none of that's set in stone, so we can tweak it as we go and move it around, etc. But that's what I've just put into the tactics for now, to train things up and get them more sort of familiar with the style of play that I want them to do. So that's it, really. That's how we've gone through this whole setup so far. It's been a good summer in the sense of we haven't lost the big boys, but if we go into the squad page, you can see, if we go and find them, so we've got Milinkovic-Savic is still wanted by Liverpool and PSG. Alberto is still wanted by Barcelona and Valencia. Immobile is still wanted by Chelsea, Man United, Tottenham. And if any of those come in with huge offers, I don't know whether there's much we can do about it or not. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. So with a few days left, I'm on a little bit of tenterhooks with it, really. I'm a little bit concerned by that, but hopefully we can keep them and build a side around them for the next few seasons to see if we can put an onslaught and go hunting for zebras. We have remained with Zebra in the game, not Juventus. It was pointed out to me quite rightly, and I'd figured it myself. I can't change it now that I've started. I'd have had to have started again and chose not to. So it's Zebra and not Juventus this time round. We'll just have to get used to that. But we do go hunting for zebras. So that will be a good way to look at it, I hope, because they are going to be a real dominant force in the next season or so. Anyway, that's pretty much it for me. There's not much else to tell you, so we're going to go into the Sampdoria game. Again, in the Serie A, a bit like in a couple of the other European leagues that we've played in recently, you get 12 men on the bench for your Serie A matches. So pretty much everybody's on the bench, other than a couple of players that are out through injury. Bastos and Lukaku are both about 4 and 5 weeks out respectively for those two, which is unfortunate. I wanted Bastos in my central defence in the Vavro role currently, as he's in there instead, but that's where I would normally be playing Bastos. So today's team though is Strakosha in goal, Vavro, Felipe and Serbi in central defence, with Leva, Milinkovic-Savic and Alberto in central midfield, with Lazaro on the right and Lulic on the left, with Correa just behind Immobile up top. And so let's get into today's game and see what happens. So I've tried to be quite positive at the beginning of this match in terms of team talks. I've suggested to Lazio's that we're at home and we can go out there and win if we play our game, and then positively gone into each of the sections and tried to build them up and tell them I have faith in them, just to give some sense of confidence in them, having had a poor pre-season. And we'll see how we get on. Immobile first off in the central striking role, gets a bit of a pot shot away, but it's blocked and cleared quite comfortably. But a decent start, a little bit of pressure first thing in the game is no bad way to start a match. And we'll just see how we settle into this particular game, really. I don't know how we're going to match up to some of these teams. For example, I know Sampdoria used to be quite successful as a Serie A side, but I'm not sure really how successful they currently are. I don't follow Italian football hugely. So, you know, if you've got stuff to tell me about Italian football, then chuck it in the comments below. I'm always interested to learn about some the current real state of Italian football, as it were. It's not something I follow a huge amount, as I say, but a first half that had very few efforts in it. That one opportunity for Immobile first thing in the first half, and then it went really quiet. And maybe that's going to be the way that some of these matches play out. My recollection of Italian football is it's quite tight and not overly attacking at times. So we'll see how that works out. We are going to say that we're a little bit disappointed in them, though. We expect more. We want to set that out from the first moment, really, and tell them what we expect them to be doing and send them back out again. And if it doesn't improve, we are going to just change it up a little bit. We're in the fluid counter-attack style just at the moment, because that's what the board wanted us to play. So I decided to start with it. But we're actually going to change that up and go to the virtual tiki-taka and go more positive and pause the game and see what substitutions we can make at this point. Not really happy that we're not getting any chances to talk about. So let's just see where we're at in terms of player ratings. Immobile up top has been isolated but we have just changed the style a little bit. So I'm going to leave him on, I think. Lulic down the left-hand side comes off and Johnny comes on as a replacement down the left-hand side. Couple of yellow cards for the big guys in central midfield. So we're going to take one of them out, and on this occasion it's going to be Milinkovic-Savic. And we're going to bring Parolo in, who's the replacement for Milinkovic-Savic in that box-to-box midfield role. And we've got one more to make. And I think I'm going to bring Correa off and bring Anderson on into that support role in attacking midfield and just see how we get on. I could have quite easily taken Immobile off, but on the first occasion, now going in a more attacking style of play, I just want him on there to see if he can get on the end of something in the final minutes of the game. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It looks like it's going to be a real damp game. And this is tantamount to what the problem has been in pre-season, is that the confidence has gone out of the club because of those big teams that we had to play in the early pre-season games. It feels like there's no momentum and impetus behind this team anymore, which is really disappointing, because if we'd have had a couple of easier games just to get momentum moving, we would have come in with a bit more confidence. There's still a new setup. There's players that got to get used to the way the team plays. I understand all of that, and my management style, etc. It's all got to be knit together. But even so, it's just felt a really empty start to a save that I've been really looking forward to getting my teeth into, because I think there's some good players here. Anyway, what we're going to do, we're going to go with the assistant. We're going to calmly say, I'm going to tell them they're not good enough rather than unlucky. I want them to be fired up by that. I want them to know that actually we need to be performing better than that. And we're just going to come back out frustrated by the draw. There's a couple of players that made debuts in there, which is good. Bit of the training stuff. And that's it, really. That's the end of the first game. We got a draw, which we'll only know whether that's decent or not as the season progresses, but I suspect it's a little bit disappointing at home, really. We've got a few good games coming up, but some really tricky ones as well. Look, Inter and Zebra, right one after the other, which is going to be really hard. We're going to come back for the Fiorentina game. So I'm going to let this play out for a few games, get into a bit of a pattern, see how we go, draw our Euro Cup group stage as well, and find the teams for that. And I'll come and update you on all of that when we play Fiorentina. And we'll also check out and see what happened in the transfer market for the last few days. If we don't sell anyone, I don't intend to bring anybody else in. I'm happy with the balance of the squad. If we do sell someone, one of those big guys, for example, then we got our work cut out for us to try and replace them, and I'll have to see if I can do that. But anyway, that'll do it for today. Disappointing result, but that's as I say, that's the effect that our pre-season has had on us. We've got to find a good win soon, hopefully against Lecce, and really find some momentum leading into the two big boys that we've got to play, Inter and Zebra. So come back next episode, I'll update you on it all. Thanks for joining me today, though. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Click that like button if you haven't. Join me next episode. Till then, take care of yourselves. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.